And to be sitting up here as a Hall of Famer in basketball, you tell me God ain't good.
At 50, when the noise of the crowd has faded and the lights of the arena are long gone, Allen Iverson still remembers the faces that shaped him. For a man who stood barely 6 feet tall, every night in the NBA was a war for respect. He was the smallest man on the court, yet somehow the loudest heartbeat in the building. They called him the answer because whenever life threw him a question, he fought back with speed, courage, and a refusal to bow down. Iverson's journey wasn't only about scoring over 30 points a night or crossing over legends in front of millions. It was about proving that heart can defeat height, that spirit can outlast fear. Behind the tattoos, the braids, and the attitude was a player who studied greatness. He watched tapes of the old masters late into the night. He learned from the giants who came before him their focus, their discipline, their silence, their grace. Those were his teachers, even if they never shared a locker room. Now, at 50, Iverson looks back not at rivals or enemies, but at the men who earned his deepest respect. The ones whose presence made him want to be better. The ones who reminded him that basketball, at its core, is about soul. From the cold precision of Jordan to the quiet genius of Larry Bird, these are the players he admired the most. Let's walk through the 5 names that shaped the fire, the faith, and the humanity of Allen Iverson, a man who proved that respect is the greatest victory of all. For Allen Iverson, there was never a bigger test than standing across from Michael Jordan. It was 1997, his rookie year, and the moment felt larger than basketball itself. The man in front of him wasn't just an opponent, he was the symbol of perfection, the measure of what greatness meant. Every kid from the streets to the suburbs had worn the number 23. Now Iverson had to face him, alone on the floor, under the blinding lights of Chicago. The story of that night has been told 1,000 times: the crossover that froze Jordan, the jumper that fell so clean it silenced the crowd for a second. But what most people forget is what happened after. Iverson looked at him, saw the calm in Jordan's eyes, and realized something deeper. It wasn't just about beating him once, it was about earning his acknowledgement. That glance from Jordan said it all: you belong here. For a kid from Newport News, Virginia, who had fought for every inch of his life, that single look meant more than any trophy. Iverson later admitted that Jordan taught him more in one game than some players learned in entire seasons. The lesson wasn't about moves or stats, it was about composure, preparation, and control. Jordan never rushed. He dictated rhythm, like a conductor leading a symphony of fear and admiration. And Iverson, watching from the other side, learned that true power doesn't need to shout. When people replay that clip, they see a crossover. Iverson sees a moment of transformation. That was the night, he said, when I knew I could stand among the legends. Jordan wasn't just a rival, he was a mirror. Facing him forced Iverson to grow, to mature, and to believe that courage could exist right beside fear. He wasn't just the challenge. He was the standard. If Michael Jordan was the man who showed Allen Iverson what greatness looked like, Kobe Bryant was the one who reminded him what it cost. They entered the league just months apart, 2 young men driven by something invisible and relentless. Both undersized for their positions, both misunderstood by critics, both obsessed with proving that talent meant nothing without obsession. When they met, it wasn't hatred, it was recognition. A mirror reflecting the same hunger, the same sleepless ambition. Iverson always respected Kobe's discipline. Long after practice ended, when most players had gone home, Kobe would still be there sweating under dim lights, perfecting the same move again and again. Iverson once said, "Kobe had that fire I recognized. The one that makes you forget everything except the game." They didn't talk often, but they didn't need to. Every matchup between them was a conversation in motion: crossovers answered by fadeaways, speed countered by precision, will tested by will. There was a mutual understanding beneath every glare. Kobe respected Iverson's rawness, the way he played as if every possession could define his soul. And Iverson, in turn, admired Kobe's control, the calm within chaos, the way he could turn fury into focus. They weren't friends in the casual sense, they were bound by something purer, a shared language of pain, effort, and purpose. Years later, when Kobe's passing shook the basketball world, Iverson spoke with a rare softness. "He was my brother in spirit," he said. "We didn't need to talk every day. I just knew he was out there working, same as me." For Iverson, Kobe's legacy wasn't just about championships, it was about devotion, the kind that burns quietly but never fades. Two men, two paths, one fire. They didn't compete for approval, they competed for truth. And in each other, they found it. When Allen Iverson first watched a young LeBron James step onto an NBA court, he didn't see a rookie. He saw a revolution. LeBron was built like no one Iverson had ever faced, stronger than a forward, quicker than a guard, smarter than both. Yet what struck Iverson most wasn't the power, it was the calm. There was no arrogance, no rush to prove anything. Just a sense of destiny, carried with quiet control. Iverson had always been a man of emotion, fire, urgency, and defiance. LeBron, though younger, embodied balance. He smiled where Iverson shouted. He lifted teammates where Iverson carried burdens alone. And Iverson admired that. He came in with all that pressure, Iverson once said, and never broke. That's greatness. Watching LeBron dominate without losing humility taught him that strength doesn't always need to fight, sometimes, it simply stands. As the years passed, their paths crossed less often, but Iverson remained one of LeBron's loudest supporters. He saw in him a continuation of the struggle, another man judged unfairly, pushed to be superhuman, yet refusing to lose his humanity. LeBron represented the evolution Iverson wished for the game, talent guided by grace, dominance guided by empathy. When Iverson speaks about LeBron today, there's pride in his voice. Not envy, not regret, just respect. He calls LeBron a once-in-a-generation force, someone who showed the world that leadership isn't about fear, but about faith. For Iverson, LeBron's journey is proof that the game keeps growing, and that greatness can be both powerful and kind. The way he handles everything, Iverson once said, that's what I admire. The way he makes it look easy when it's not. To Iverson, LeBron isn't just a player, he's a symbol. Of control without coldness, of power with grace. The very evolution of everything Iverson once fought for. For Allen Iverson, driving into the paint meant confronting something close to a mountain. And most nights, that mountain wore a smile. Shaquille O'Neal was unlike anyone Iverson had ever faced, massive, dominant, and yet, disarmingly kind. You could feel his presence before you even saw him. The floor shook when he moved, the rim trembled when he finished, and still, there was a lightness about him, as if the game itself was his playground. Iverson admired Shaq for the balance he carried between intimidation and joy. There was no pretending with him. When it was time to compete, he dominated, but outside those lines, he made everyone laugh. Iverson used to say, Shaq could crush you and then crack a joke right after. That's real power. For a man like Iverson, who often had to build armor just to survive, seeing Shaq embrace life with such ease was refreshing. It reminded him that confidence didn't always need a fight, it could simply exist. On the court, Shaq forced Iverson to think faster, to find angles no one else could. A layup against him wasn't just a score, it was survival through creativity. Every time Iverson drove past him, it felt like dodging gravity itself. Yet even in those moments, Shaq never made it personal. There was respect in the way he played, and understanding that competition could be fierce and still honorable. Years later, Iverson would reflect on what Shaq represented, strength without cruelty. He was a giant, Iverson said, but he never made you feel small. To him, that was the truest kind of greatness, not just the ability to dominate, but the ability to uplift everyone around you. Shaq taught Iverson something no highlight ever could, that real toughness doesn't mean being feared. It means being respected, and returning that respect no matter how high you stand. Among all the legends Allen Iverson admired, one name often surprised people, Larry Bird. They never shared the court, never traded baskets in real time, but Iverson studied him like a craftsman studies a blueprint. To him, Bird represented something rare, the ability to dominate without noise, to conquer without ever needing the spotlight. Iverson came from a world of shouts and rhythm, Bird moved in silence, yet every move spoke volumes. Watching old tapes, Iverson was mesmerized by Bird's calm. There was no flash, no showmanship, just precision and patience. He played like a man who had already seen the next 3 plays before anyone else. Iverson, whose game thrived on improvisation, admired how Bird could control chaos with nothing but timing and intelligence. He didn't have to jump higher, Iverson once said, he just had to think quicker. That quiet confidence fascinated him. Bird taught Iverson that swagger doesn't always come from noise, it can live in stillness. Every smirk, every slow walk back on defense, every look of certainty, it all told a story of unshakable belief. For Iverson, who fought battles both on and off the court, Bird's composure was a kind of power he could never master but always respected. He loved how Bird never needed validation. He didn't flex. He didn't chase attention. He just played, and winning was his only statement. That, Iverson believed, was the purest form of greatness, to be undeniable without saying a word. In Bird, Iverson found the counterpoint to his own fire, a man who taught him that sometimes silence is the loudest message of all. He didn't need to talk trash, Iverson reflected. His game did it for him. To Iverson, Larry Bird wasn't a relic of the past. He was proof that confidence could whisper and still echo forever. As Allen Iverson looks back now, his story isn't just about crossing over defenders or defying gravity, it's about the men who shaped his understanding of greatness. Michael Jordan taught him that fear can turn into faith. Kobe Bryant showed him that passion burns brighter when it's disciplined. LeBron James reminded him that power can be graceful. Shaquille O'Neal embodied strength without cruelty. And Larry Bird proved that silence can roar louder than words. Each of them left a mark deeper than any scoreboard could show. Iverson has always been known for his defiance, for playing his way, dressing his way, living his way. But beneath that rebellion lived a quiet reverence for those who paved the road before him. He learned that admiration doesn't mean imitation. It means carrying forward the best of what inspired you and leaving behind your own lesson for the next generation. For Iverson, that lesson was simple: heart over height, respect over recognition. He once said, "I didn't need to be the biggest or the most polished. I just needed to be real." And in that truth, he found peace. Because in the end, greatness isn't about trophies or fame, it's about impact, about how deeply you make others feel something. Those 5 men made Iverson feel the weight and beauty of the game. So when he talks about them now, there's no rivalry left, only gratitude. The answer found his truth not in confrontation, but in respect. If you were Allen Iverson, who would still live in your memory? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if these names brought you back to the golden days of basketball, subscribe and keep the legacy alive.